Hello everybody, it's Neil here from NIMBUS CO. Look, I know you guys are pretty experienced when it comes to sauna, but I wanted to ask you a question. Outside of sweating and detoxifying, let's say, do you actually know what's going on when you're in a sauna? Do you? It's a good question. And look, whilst it feels like everybody knows about saunas and ice baths, and I get it, I lived in Bondi for 10 years, Bondi guy talks about ice baths, etc. When you actually dig a little bit deeper from an education point of view, there's still a lot of room, a lot of information that I think people should have in their hands and be able to understand about what's actually going on when you're inside a sauna. So what is that, Neil? You might ask me. And we get loads of questions about what's the difference between a traditional sauna and an infrared sauna. And it's not really about one being better than the other, but a traditional sauna heats the air. That air then heats your body. That's why it's difficult to sometimes breathe in a traditional sauna, because there's actually less oxygen in the air through convectional heat. An infrared sauna is different. It's an invisible light. Infrared is just a light that's on the light spectrum. You've got X-ray down the other end, but then you've got infrared on this end. So it's invisible to the naked eye. Our saunas have what they call full spectrum infrared, which is the three main types of infrared: mid, near, and far. And they're all just separate frequencies that penetrate your body at a different level. Now, because of that, some of them go right through to you as a cellular level. Now, there's a process called vasodilation, which is basically your cells at a very minute level that just vibrate very, very quickly. That creates that heat element, go into exercise mode. So it's basically putting your body in this kind of stress environment, because it is stress. If you go for a run, if you go to do weightlifting or anything like that, you are putting your body under stress. A sauna replicates that almost in an unofficial environment. You literally just have to sit there. In America, they're saying it's groundbreaking because it's giving people an opportunity to do weight loss and tackle their health from just sitting there rather than putting their body through rigorous exercise. When it comes to saunas, I like to think about it in terms of an X and Y axis. You've got all your benefits here, which is things like blood circulation, good for muscle recovery, helps you sleep, it's good for your mental health, it's good for skin health, stimulate digestive system, immune boosting, all those things, right? Now, if you look at it from an X and Y perspective, if you do it consistently, and there's 30-year studies that are coming out of Finland at the moment, which say if you do anywhere between 40 to 45 minutes twice a week, or you can split that in half and do four, so 20 minutes 4 times a week, or 40 minutes twice a week, give or take. If you do that consistently over time, it reduces your risk of cardiovascular disease and stroke by up to 40% and all-cause mortality. Now, what does that mean? That's everything from dementia, Alzheimer's, diabetes, things like that. So if you're doing it consistently over time, you're going to get this whole other raft of benefits. So that's really the sweet stuff. That's the magic. That's where you really want to be. I keep going back to this every time I talk about it. It's consistency is key. I've spent the last 10 years in the wellness game. And yes, whilst saunas are a form of technology, often what drives the biggest impact from a wellness perspective in us is the most basic and simple things. So not even just saunas. Things like going for a walk. Breath work is a huge thing. Cold therapy in some form is a huge thing. And you don't have to have an ice bath for that. You can get that from a cold shower at home. I shouldn't be saying that, but you can. So that's the difference, you know. It doesn't have to be some big, hairy goal that you're trying to set in order for you to be healthy. Often, the things that make us the most healthy are right in front of us. They're free, and we have access to them all the time. So don't be too stressed about trying to do the most fancy wellness gym, whatever technology or tool it is. Just focus on the basics, and that will lead to you living a healthier life. Now, the other lovely insight I like to talk about when it comes to the benefits of infrared saunas is, we spoke about it earlier, but that penetration to you at a cellular level, right? So I use an accordion kind of as an example. So imagine this is a healthy, fully formed cell. You're sitting there. You're putting your body in a stressful environment, like what you go to the gym. You lift a weight, you rip a muscle, and then the muscle repairs stronger. That's essentially what's happening with an infrared sauna. You've got a cell, it's slightly cracking open, it's weakening as a result of you putting it in a stressful environment, and then it's healing afterwards. So if you do that regularly, you're flexing your cells like that. How many different modalities are we able to do that? Not many in this day and age. So saunas provide this unbelievable insight into longevity and overall health that some other practices can't do. And if you think about that neuroplasticity, the cellular regrowth, I'm 40, I just turned 40 in November. When you hit about 40, you start to lose that regeneration process in your body. And that's what happens when you go into saunas and ice baths, is you're actually generating new cells, heat shock proteins they talk about. When you're in an ice bath, for example, your heart rate is lowering because you're going into survival mode, or the dive effect they call it. So your body needs to stay warm. You're then producing brown fats. That's all the good fats. That's the stuff that sparks your metabolic rate. It also triggers your nervous system. You're stimulating your thyroid gland, which then triggers the vagus nerve, which is the big nerve that controls most of your nervous system. So if you struggle with things like mental health, which things I do, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, the gruesome threesome that I have, what an ice bath does as well, again, if you think about that accordion, you're putting yourself in a stressful environment, you're then training yourself to come back in by using breath work. You're going stressed again, then you're bringing you back in. Now, if you do that over time, you're creating that neuroplasticity in terms of your reaction to stressful environments. So the next time you actually are in a stressful environment, it's not to say that you won't get stressed, but what it does say is that your body and your mind is going to be able to adapt to it a lot quicker. So they both have amazing benefits individually, right? But then if you put them together, you get what's called contrast therapy, hot and cold. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about that as well. Now, if you think of blood circulation in your blood vessels, where you expand them when you're in a heated environment, when you're in the ice or the cold, you're contracting them. So again, going back to that accordion, you're flexing your blood, your circulation, all those things. You're just creating better windows of tolerance, better neuroplasticity, not in just one part of your body, in the entirety of your body. And the thing about saunas and ice baths, it depends what your goal is on the day. I say this and people laugh at me, but it really is. You can decide to do it in the morning, you can decide to do it in the evening, you can decide to do it for 15 minutes or 45 minutes, you can decide to go for 45 minutes without a break, you can have lots of breaks. You can, jump in the ice bath every 15 minutes. There's so many different protocols you can do. So you got to listen to your body. If your body is not feeling it on a given day, don't push it, because you don't want to overdo it and get dehydrated. That's not what you want to try and do. So you got to listen to your body. Depends on how you've slept the night before, what food you've eaten, have you exercised. All those things come into the picture. So you really just got to go with the flow, see how you're feeling. But if you stick to that guideline of about 2 saunas per week of 40 minutes and about 10 minutes of some form of cold therapy, can be an ice bath, sure. If not, a dip in the ocean or a cold shower, a minute in any of those all goes towards your 10 minutes. And it doesn't all have to be at the same time. It doesn't all have to be back to back. You can accumulate it over a given week. Once you're hitting about 10 minutes in a week, that has been proven in terms of contrast therapy to be the magic place in terms of overall benefits. So give it a try. I've been doing it with our challenge with Whoop and some of our members in Neutral Bay as well, which will release the study in the next few weeks. Really excited about that. We look forward to seeing you in studio. And if you have any questions, just ask any of our friendly staff. Thanks, guys. Bye.